regularly.
Yeah, in
Okay.
Mexico City or where?
In Mexico City, yes.
Okay.
He's an investment advisor. Deals with international investment.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
And he
Wow.
likes being here?
He's he was born in Venezuela. His mother's Venezuelan. His father is British, and he's more Latin American than he is Canadian or British. He actually hates the winters in Canada.
I can see how that could happen. All right,
Yeah.
so let's get started here. Just so you know, I am recording this, and so if somebody missed it and wanted to have this conversation or to hear this conversation, I'm probably just going to go ahead and share it with whoever wants it. So I just wanted to let you know that it is being recorded. And so I'm Bob Bray, and the reason that I decided to do this is that I don't get to talk to many people who are well-trained in TFT and who work with it as much as I'd like to. So this is a way for me to kind of find an opportunity for some discussions, or at least some interesting, a chance to hear what's going on in people's thoughts. I decided to name the group Scanning the Thought Fields of TFT. And so it's just asking people to share what's going on in their thinking and in their practice of TFT. So my thought for this first one was, since John had begun to talk about his work with his new algorithm, that it might be interesting to have that discussion. So I wanted to start by being clear about what we're talking about here, because I think one of the things that we need to always remember with thought field therapy is there's so many directions that we can go with it. We need to remember what the grounding is and where it comes from. So what I'm suggesting is that we use the definition that Roger had for algorithm, and that's what I sent out in the email. That's from his books, and the key for me was the idea that it was permits an untrained person to readily enter the domain of TFT treatment successfully. So what that means to me is that an algorithm has to be something that doesn't require muscle testing, doesn't require any other than a page of instruction. And so that's one of the things I'm looking for. I also just wanted to when we talk about an algorithm is a specific sequence for a specific purpose. Oftentimes people talk about, well, what's the algorithm, when really what they're talking about or asking about is, what is the tapping pattern? What are the majors that are going to be used? So I wanted to be clear about that there's a difference between an algorithm, a tapping pattern, and a hold-on, which includes the tapping, the majors, the 9-gamut series, and the majors. So with those definitions in mind, I think that's all I'm going to have to say about this before I turn this over to John to talk a little bit about it. I'm wondering, but before we do that, I just want to say that before we end, we have an hour. Before we end, I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about when we might meet again and what might be some topics that people would be interested in. Yeah, I think that's where we can stop at this point. I'm just going to ask, does anybody else have any comments or thoughts about this before we jump in there with John?
No.
Okay.
I'm ready to hear you.
Oh, does everybody know everyone?
No.
Let's just go around and say who we are. I'm Bob Bray. I'm in San Diego. I do a lot of training in thought field therapy, and I really love doing the work. So I don't know what your screen looks like, so it's hard to tell who's going to be next. How about Noel? Go ahead, Noel.
Yes, my name is Noel, and I'm from the Netherlands. And I joined, I saw Roger Gallahan. The last time I saw him was the last time he was in the UK. And we did the training with Joanne and Roger and Phyllis and Howard Robson. So I'm trained in TFT Advanced, and I do this now for a lot of years, and I love it. I love to help people so quickly, and I see very, very big changes in people's lives. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's excellent. I just heads up. I wrote an article that was translated into Dutch, and also my book, Traumatic Stress Recovery Now, was translated into Norwegian. So it is available if that might be useful to you at some point.
Yes, yes. I love to have. Yes. Thank you.
Diana, you want to say something about yourself?
Hi, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I've never used Zoom before. I learned, I was at Optimal Health January of 2017 with Joanne in Virginia. And next to my spiritual teacher, I think this is the most important thing in my life. It's just absolutely incredible.
Excellent.
I worked with people a lot till the summer, and then you may have seen my email in Optimal Health that I lost my testing powers. And John, who's on this call, has given me some things to do, which I'm doing. Apparently, I did have or do have the blocked regulation that he talked about in his email. So I'm working on that, and very excited about getting back into self-testing again. But meanwhile, I've been doing algorithms. And I love TFT. I think it's just absolutely fabulous.
Great. All right. John?
I was trained by Joanne in Chicago many years ago. I can't remember exactly when. I love TFT. I've gone on to study other things, Eden Energy Medicine and applied psychoneurobiology and a few other crazy things. I was a hypnotist first. And what's interesting is I've found some of the principles I learned when I became a master hypnotist have now come into my consciousness as understanding, I think, why we can use this potential new algorithm to help people. And did you want me to start, Bob?
No, we've got somebody else. Elise?
Hi. I'm Elise Bergeron. I'm in Iowa, and I've had the Optimal Health training, and I mainly use this. I'm a Christian, and God has just led me to use this a lot with mental illness. We have a lot of mental illness in our family, and we use these tools every day, and I have no idea what our lives, well, I wouldn't be married probably if I hadn't found TFT. It was an answer to prayer. And I'm working with the functional health group here in Iowa. People are really interested in TFT, and Bob's going to help me with the presentation. And I just, this is just so exciting. So thank you for doing this, because I'd love to talk with other people every month just to stay enthused and see what everybody's doing. So thank you for doing this group. I really appreciate it.
Leo?
Hi, well, my name is Leo. I live in Mexico City. I've been trained by Bob and by Joan, I guess, in Optimal Health 2 years ago. And I've been using it for myself and often with people. I've got a little trouble with muscle testing, so I don't feel that confident, but we're working on it. And I'm really, really grateful for this space to know you and to keep learning about it.
Jenny?
Hi, Bob. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Edwards. I live in Evergreen, Colorado. I took diagnostic from Roger in 1998 and got trained in voice technology in 99. I knew it was my mission to take it to other countries. I worked with bombing victims in Nairobi the Monday after the embassy bombing on August 8th, 1998. I have taught TFT in 10 countries in 4 languages, French, Italian, Spanish, and English. And I recently did a meta-analysis of our studies, and I'm on the board. I'm obviously passionate about TFT. Bob, thank you so much.
All right. So we're talking about the creation of new algorithms. What does it take? And maybe the best way to approach this is let John talk about what he's been working with.
This evolved from a process of discovery over the past couple of years. And what happened is probably in the last year and a half, I've discovered a consistency in terms of the first tapping pattern when I'm dealing with an issue that is of a longer term duration. Longer term means it's not in the most recent past, it's something that might go back 20, 30, 40, even 70 years. I have a few clients that are in their late 70s, and a lady, she was born during the Second World War, went through all that trauma in Africa, ended up in Canada. She couldn't drive out of her town. She couldn't leave her house. She met me at a thing I was doing at the local rec center. I worked with her for 6 months, and now she drives all over the place. She's got a freedom she never had before, and it's like she's like 76 years old. But she's loving it. And well, her and others like it, I began to discover a pattern, and all of a sudden the light went on. I said, why am I seeing bladder, small intestine, triple warmer so consistently? And then one day I'm just thinking about things, and I said, I wonder if this is an algorithm. And then I do a lot of teaching at the local community centers here on Vancouver Island. This is an interesting place. It's a population of 1 million people, and it's got 900 alternative health practitioners on the island. It's like this little hotbed of interesting stuff going on. And so there's a lot of interest in these sorts of things. And during the classes, I get playful sometimes, is a way to describe it. And sometimes I'm impatient. And that playfulness and that impatience sometimes leads me just to do things. I'm just trusting instinct. And along the way, as I trusted the instinct, I found it actually worked. But it's a relatively small audience, and so I reached out to the larger audience to try to get some validation, because maybe I'm just crazy, but get some validation that there's actually something here about it. Some of my thought process about why this might work, and I'll share that first, is because we know the bladder energy system controls the whole central nervous system of the body. We know the small intestine energy system is about decision making. What do I hold on to and what do I let go of? And we know the triple warmer is associated with fight, flight, freeze, and the whole immune system of the body. So, I mean,
John, can I interrupt for one second just to clarify? Because if people aren't familiar with that, because oftentimes in TFT, we don't refer to the meridian points or the meridians that we're working on. We refer to the treatment points.
Right.
So when he's saying bladder, the treatment point is eyebrow. You said, what is it? Eyebrow, side of hand?
Side of hand.
And a gamut point.
And the gamut point.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm just using the classic Chinese energy understanding of their emotional component, which got me thinking about it. And I spoke to a 69-year-old engineer yesterday back in Ontario, and on the second treatment pattern, and I tested it through I used my index finger as my testing method. The code for the second issue was bladder, small intestine, triple warmer. I didn't do the algorithm, but again, I found the pattern yesterday, and it was associated with a long-term anxiety that's been there for probably about 30 years. So I keep seeing this consistency for longer-term issues and this pattern coming up. And then the second treatment pattern keeps getting. But it seems for some reason this combination of eyebrow, side of hand, gamut point, and sometimes it's only eyebrow and side of hand. And once in a while they switch order, but almost always, probably 80% of the time, eyebrow shows up as the first one. And the gamut point is probably not there about 30% of the time. But is there often enough, I just throw it into the equation anyways. So that was the thinking pattern, because I worked with enough people that it kept occurring. I'm actually going to be teaching a class tonight in Nanaimo. And I'm going to be experimenting with this again because I've got a very playful audience. And they allow me to do things, which is good. Here's what I believe would be a pattern you could use. Let's say a person had a shoulder problem, and I always think about it this way: if they've gone to see the physiotherapist, they've gone to see the massage therapist, they've been getting all that kind of stuff, and it's not working, there's something else in the way. And through some of the studies I've done, I know that behind a lot of chronic injuries and illness, there's an emotional component. I know that. I've just done enough work. I know it's there, and I find it all the time. So I could assume, and it's safe to do it because we know with tapping, it's either neutral or a benefit. There is no harm. So we're not going to hurt anybody. So I could assume there is an issue from the past that may be blocking the healing of that shoulder injury. I would simply say to the patient, let's imagine for a moment that there might be something from the past that somehow is interfering with the ability of that shoulder to heal. And perhaps it's a trauma, or perhaps it's a conflict. We don't know what it is. But close your eyes right now and allow your unconscious mind to go and see if it can discover the issue. And then I say, and it doesn't matter if you actually are consciously aware of it. Close your eyes for a moment. And I have them do that. And then I have them open their eyes. I'm sometimes a double tapper. So tap, edge of eyebrow, side of hand, and then the gamut point. And of course, I would have checked the SUD level. Joanne always chastised me in my training because I sometimes forget to ask for the SUD level, but I'm getting better at it, Bob, after about 8-9 years.
Good, good, good.
So I asked them the SUD. It is whatever it is, right? Then I have them tap it, and then I simply say to them, has anything changed? And that's a phraseology I like to use because actually sometimes the pain or discomfort can get worse before it gets better. So I don't ask them if the SUD has gone up or down. I say first, has anything changed? And then if it's something where they need to move to kind of activate it, because sometimes that's the issue, I might say, why don't you just gently move the shoulder, or why don't you stand up and tell me how it feels now? And then they give me a number. And what's interesting is more often than not, the SUD level, the discomfort has begun to go down. So that's the interesting thing that I have discovered. And do I fully understand why? Absolutely not. It's just something I have observed time and time again, which made me think, as we want to spread this to more people, if we could walk them through a very simple protocol that could begin to release this. And I think, isn't it Roger that said behind many of our, how do I put this? There's an initial incident that triggers a lot of the stuff that's happened. And we don't know where that initial incident came from. But the unconscious mind knows and can absolutely tap into the thought field. And it reminded me of when I used to do a lot of hypnosis work, when I would say to an individual, after I took them into a trance, Allow your unconscious mind to go find any event of any kind of a person, place, or thing from any period of time that's contributed to this particular issue. And then I would instruct the unconscious mind to neutralize and to get rid of it. And I had huge success. I had worked in a clinic with a gentleman in Canada who was one of the leading biomechanical specialists in the world. And he would do all the structural work, and then he'd have me come in and do the mental emotional work. And we had huge success in helping people recover from injuries. He'd do the structural, and I would do the mental emotional. So I'd forgotten about that because it was quite some time ago, and I was remembering this from before, and I'm thinking, this can work because it's all recorded. We just need to find a way to tap into it, and I believe when you give that instruction, you're going to find the thought field, and then by tapping, you're disconnecting that emotion from whatever the illness is. So that's my thinking process.
All right, John. So let me ask a couple questions just so I'm clear. So in an algorithm, because when we teach people to do algorithms, we start with tune to a thought.
Right.
Now, the piece I'm not clear about here is, are we tuning to the shoulder discomfort? Are we tuning to the that in terms of just dealing with pain or the concern with it? Are we tuning to something else? Like, would we say we're tuning to the unconscious understanding of the root cause of that shoulder problem?
Yes.
So
Correct.
the tuning to is to the root, the unconscious root cause.
Yes.
Okay.
And the way I frame that, I say perhaps there is an issue from the past, perhaps a trauma or a conflict that is yet to be resolved, that is somehow associated with this injury or illness. Allow your unconscious mind to find this now.
Okay, so you're saying trauma from the past or yet unresolved.
A trauma or conflict from the past that is not yet resolved. A conflict or trauma from the past that is not yet resolved.
Okay, is not yet. Now, John, would you have done this before you would even try the simple thing of just saying, so if you have discomfort in your shoulder, let's just do the pain algorithm to see if we can release that?
In the past, that's what I would have done, but now, because I like this, it's become one of my pets, I just go there first.
So you don't try any other algorithm first?
No, and part of it is I do have a bias, and I will share that bias.
That's okay.
I have found so many unresolved conflicts and traumas associated with injuries and illnesses. There's a thing called a hand mode, and these are symbols the brain recognizes, and sometimes I use these to find the underlying issue. Now, I do this through energy testing or muscle testing, and thumb to index finger is it structural in nature. Thumb to middle finger is a biochemical in nature. Thumb to middle finger is it emotional, and thumb to baby finger is it purely energetic. So I could actually diagnose that injury and then energy test to see which one of those things is showing first as on first, because this will show you priority. Now, when I use energy testing, that's what I do. But if I didn't have energy testing, then, and because I've found the emotional component shows up so often, I just go there as my first go-to place.
Okay, now here's the problem that we need to be aware of when we do this. First, what John is talking about in terms of using his fingers, that doesn't come out of Callahan Techniques thought field therapy. That comes, I've seen it in energy medicine in Donna Eden's energy medicine. Is that where you found it, John, or did you find it someplace
It's
else?
from classical kinesiology is where it's from.
Classical kinesiology. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but again, the problem here is that if it's going to be an algorithm, it has to be something that does not require.
Precisely. So
Right.
I only use that as how I discovered it,
Right.
not as part of how you train.
Okay. So,
So,
because the question that I had asked you was, when would you instruct people to use this algorithm? And you're saying that as soon as you recognize that it's a long-standing problem and you have a SUD with it, you could use this.
Absolutely. Nothing else has been working.
Okay.
They're having this ongoing problem. It's not going away. And so I say, well, I frame the sentence. I wonder if there's an issue from the past.
Right. Okay. So, but that's often your start place. Now, the question that I want to ask, so once we've tuned to the thought field, which is having the person notice if there is trauma or conflict from the past associated with this that's not yet resolved, then you ask for SUD level?
So, no, I don't.
Okay.
At the very beginning, so step by step, at the beginning, I'd say, tell me how that shoulder feels right now.
Right.
Give me a number. So I have my first frame of reference is the number.
Oh, so you already have a SUD level. Okay.
Yeah. So step right from the beginning, give me a SUD on the shoulder. Perfect. Then I say, I wonder if there may be something from the past that is interfering with the healing process. Please close your eyes. I have them close their eyes. And then I say, perhaps there is an unresolved trauma or conflict that you're not aware of that is interfering with the healing process. Allow your unconscious mind to find this now. That's the tuning process.
Okay.
Then I have them open their eyes. And then I say, tap along with me. So they tap with me, inside edge of eyebrow, side of hand, gamma point. And I typically tap 9 times, approximate. And then I check in and I say, now, as we were doing this, did anything come to mind? So maybe they feel some discomfort. So I actually do a different type of check-in first. Did anything occur to you as we were doing this? And what's interesting, sometimes they remember an event from 30 years ago they had totally forgotten about. All of a sudden it comes back to them. It's like crazy. And then I will check in and say, then tell me how the shoulder feels right now. And quite often, it has gone from like a 9 down to a 7 or a 6. And then I'll just do the gamma sequence, and then I'll repeat the pattern. And then I'll see where we are.
Now, what would happen if they said, well, I don't notice any change?
Well, so it actually hasn't happened.
Really? Okay. Well, the reason that I ask is because...
Sorry, Bob, I haven't had that problem.
Okay. I'm just wondering how psychological reversal would fit into what you're doing, because if we look at it in an algorithm sense, the SUD level indicates whether or not the healing's happening. If the healing's not happening the way we would predict, then we make the assumption that it's a psychological reversal getting in the way.
Right. And that only happens about 2% of the time for me.
Okay. So
on
you
the first pass,
all right.
It can happen, but it's so rare that now that I've forgotten about it, it just only happens 2 or 3% of the time.
Okay. So you would then do the 9 gamut series and repeat the tapping, just so to complete the whole on, right?
Yeah.
So the tapping series is eyebrow, side of hand, gamut, 9 times each. 9G SQ. So
right.
That's what we got. And that how many do you find that usually that's going to drop the SUD to 0, or do you feel or do you find that you have to do it more?
It's oftentimes going to bring it down to about a 2 or 3 or 4.
Okay.
And then I can see whether or not they still may need to get a little bit of massage therapy or something.
Okay. So why don't you see if you can get a volunteer, John, and walk someone through this and as an algorithm. No muscle testing.
No muscle testing.
No muscle testing. As an algorithm. Because I get how you get this from a diagnostic perspective. I could see how you would develop this, and it's fine. Okay.
Is there someone there on the line that has an issue that they'd be willing? It's an injury or something that's been around for a while that you haven't had the success you want. Noelle is laughing there a wee bit.
Yeah, because I have a shoulder problem too.
Oh, you have a shoulder problem.
3 months. Yeah, for 3 months.
How long now?
3 months, I think.
3 months.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you looking for something longer, John?
Oh, that's fine. That's perfect, actually.
Okay.
So, Noelle, does it provide you a level of discomfort right now?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the worst it could be and 1's no problem, what's the number right now?
I think it's a 6.
It's a 6. I like to take notes as we go along, if that's okay. That's just in case I forget what the heck I'm doing.
It happens to the best of us.
Yes. So, Noelle, if this injury's been around for a while, have you been seeking some sort of treatment for it?
Yes. So I don't know how you call it, the masseur, the massage
Therapist?
and yes, and the physiotherapist.
All right. So what I'd like you to do, Noelle, I would like you just to close your eyes for a moment, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like you to imagine that perhaps there is something from the past that you're not aware of, but your unconscious mind is. Perhaps it's an unresolved trauma or conflict. We don't know. That somehow may be connected with this, and simply allow your unconscious mind to discover this. It may or may not come to conscious awareness, and that's perfectly fine. Now open your eyes if you would.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to tap along with me. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And side of hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the gamut spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And take a little breath. Did any memories or images or impressions come to you as we were doing this?
Well, maybe it's crazy, but it was a memory. It was not mine. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. It's like it was another life or something.
That's fine. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you, oh, by the way, what's the SUD level now? As you tune into your shoulder, how does your shoulder feel at this moment in time?
Well, I think it's the 3.
Perfect. So why don't you just follow along with me? We're going to do the gamma sequence. Start tapping. And please close both eyes. And now open both eyes. And both eyes looking down right.
Mm-hmm.
And both eyes looking down left. Rotate your eyes one way and keep tapping. And the other way and keep tapping. And hum any tune out loud. And count 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And hum any tune. Perfect. Now, along with me, let's tap inside edge of eyebrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Side of hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then on the back in the gamma spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take a little breath. Tell me how that shoulder feels now.
That feels better.
Feels better, does it?
Yeah.
Yes. How much better?
Well, I think it's a 2 or something. 1, 2, like
Okay.
that.
So why don't you just do the eye roll, because you know how to do that. Floor to ceiling eye roll.
Mm-hmm.
Noel?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes. Yes.
I'm just saying, you don't have to touch the collarbone point to do that.
Oh, I learned it like that.
Really? Did you hold it with both fingers?
Yes, the index finger and the thumb on the collarbones.
And did
And
you
then
learn
tap
this
the
from
gum
Joanne?
point. Yeah, and then tap the gum point. And then I do the floor to ceiling.
That's a variation I haven't heard of, but
now I gotta call Joanne and ask her, what are you doing?
so Noel,
Yes.
what's the number now? Tell me about your shoulder.
Well, at this time, John, I can say I don't feel it. It's amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah, because I
and
did the sequence that you gave because I emailed you.
yes.
And I did it, and it didn't go away. So now I don't feel it. And
yes.
I did it with clients too, and it was really amazing. It had really
good effect.
Good effects. Yes.
Now, based upon what Noel had said to me, there's another issue I would explore, but we won't do that here. Because there was actually a memory that came to you. We're not sure where it came from, but I would explore that because there's probably a secondary issue that needs to be dealt with.
I think too, yeah.
But for the purpose of this demo, I think that worked out quite nicely.
Very nicely. Do you love it when it works?
Yeah, I love it when it works. And it's so simple. That's the beauty of it. And I guess it's partly because I trust in the ability of the mind. Energy follows where consciousness goes. And I just believe in that passionately. And I trust that it's all recorded. And then we just simply have to find a way to allow the mind to tune into whatever the relevant issue is. So I think saying it in a certain way that perhaps there is an issue that is in some way connected, it may be an unresolved conflict or unresolved trauma. You may or may not know what it is, and oftentimes they don't, but that's okay. Allow your unconscious mind to find it now. I believe that's the tuning statement.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this only going to work with pain? I can give you an example of something I have that. So first of all, the question is it only going to work with pain, or could it work with something else?
Yes, it'll work with something else.
Okay, for example, I have a rash on my legs that first erupted a couple of years ago when I started again dealing with sexual abuse from way, way, way back. And it was all over my legs. And at that time, I only knew TFT. I worked with EFT. I worked with an EFT therapist, and we did a lot of work, and the rash went down. But now it's a couple years later. I still have a small bit of rash. And I keep thinking that it's related to anger and shame related to the issue.
Can we do this one, Bob?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean,
can we work on this?
I'm wondering if we can get the rash to disappear in the moment. That would be great.
Well,
well, some rashes, some people's skin is very reactive to this stuff. So yeah, let's experiment.
I have a rash that my left foot is my emotional barometer. And when all chaos is breaking out in my extended family, it shows up in a rash on my left foot and never my right foot. And it's always just a foot.
Wow.
So, where's my candidate here? Where'd she go? Diana. So Diana, if you would, so as you can look at the rash, and you have some way to gauge its impact upon you. So, there's no SUD per se. I don't know. Is there an irritation or a size or a whatever?
Only when I touch it, it itches, but otherwise it just looks horrible. So.
Okay, so you're going to be the judge. We don't really have a SUD per se. So what I want you to do now, if you would please.
Well, but I think it's okay, John, to say to Diana, why don't you put a SUD level on her right now? You know when it's been the worst, and you know when it would be gone. So
okay.
You can just however you calibrate that, go ahead and put a SUD level on it, just so, in a month when we ask you, how is it? We'll have a place to start.
Let's do that. Perfect. Thanks, Bob. So Diana, do you have a number for us?
I'd say a 5 or a 6.
Which number would you like?
5.
Perfect. All right. So Diana, perhaps there is something from the past that you're not consciously aware of. It may be an unresolved conflict or trauma. Perhaps you would close your eyes for a moment, if you would, please. And I want you to trust in your unconscious mind to identify anything from the past that somehow may be connected to this rash that has persisted. And allow your unconscious mind now to find that link and to tune into it. Now, Diana, if you'd open your eyes, please. And along with me, please tap the inside edge of eyebrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Side of hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And go to the gamut spot 9 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take a little breath from me, please. Now, as you tune into that rash right now, what changes have you noticed, if any?
Well, what came up was incredible rage and my grandfather. And then when I think of a number, a SUD level, I get a 3.
All right, so I want you to go to the gamma spot. Start tapping here on the gamma spot and close both eyes. And now open both eyes. And both eyes looking down right. Keep tapping, both eyes looking down left. Rotate your eyes one way. Rotate your eyes the other way. Humming tune out loud. Count 1 to 5 when you're ready.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And humming tune out loud. Now, along with me, repeat the initial pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Side of hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The gamma spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take a little breath. Now tell me what's happening with that rash.
Well, it hasn't gone away.
No.
But I don't know if I'm making this up, but what comes to mind is the irritation about it. When I started at a 5, went to a 3. Now it seems that it's a 1.
It's a 1. All right.
Diana,
So-
when you touch the rash, do you notice anything? Because you said when you touched it before, you noticed something.
There's one part of it that's fiery.
But before it was all fiery?
Yes.
Okay.
What I would have done at this juncture, because she talked about the rage that flickered into her mind, I would have used the algorithm for that and treated that as well.
Okay.
I would have done that. Because if it's there in some component, I just want to get rid of it.
Question, John. I wasn't sure what I should be thinking about, what my thought field should be as we were doing the sequence.
So the thing is, my instruction is your unconscious mind will have found any relevant issue. Let's just tap it out now.
Okay, so you don't have to.
Whether or not you're consciously aware, I don't care.
Okay. Good.
So what do the others think? Just open it up for a bit of discussion.
Well, I think it's amazing. Yeah. I did it. I did the sequence with some clients, and it really helped. And there was one client who has, for 15 years, he has an anxiety, and he didn't know where it came from. So I did what John told us in the email, and I did the sequence. And after that, it was gone. A week later, I saw him again. It was still gone. And now for 3 weeks, it's gone. It's gone. You know, he has no anxiety anymore. So, yeah, it's yeah. I'm very happy with that, and the client too.
Fern, you want to say something?
Yes, well, thank you, John. Really appreciate this information. I think it's fabulous. And one of the questions I had, I noticed that when they're tapping into the unconscious, you have them close their eyes. When they're tapping, they have their eyes open. That's so they can follow along with you. But if you were working with somebody who knew the spots, would it be more beneficial to have the eyes closed since you're accessing the unconscious mind?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what I can do about that.
I just turned up my speaker. Can you try that again?
Okay. And I'm sorry about the poor picture here, this light in my background.
No worries.
Anyway, thank you for this. I think it sounds fabulous. I haven't tried it myself, but it certainly it makes sense to me. But
yes.
my question was, you have them close their eyes when they're accessing the unconscious, and I'm wondering if you did any testing to see whether tapping with the eyes opened or closed made a difference.
Fern, that's a great question. I have not done that, and that's something we should perhaps explore.
And the other question was, because you can muscle test, you have in the beginning when you were formulating this, did you muscle test to know when they'd accessed that memory? I'm going
to see if I can show you something here. This is not TFT. This is called Unresolved Feelings and Feelings Chart. And it's an expanded version of the various emotions and issues that can be associated with the different energy systems. And so perhaps in another class, Bob, when we talk about some more advanced stuff where we're using, whether it's voice technology or traditional muscle testing, I could describe how I use this to target very specifically what is the unresolved emotion. I can nail it down to time, place, event. I can nail it. And when I nail it, the relief is amazingly quick.
Well, John, you shared that with me when we were in Vancouver, and I thought it was very interesting. And I think one of the comments I just want to make is that it seems to me that one of the critical elements here is the involvement of the unconscious mind, or
yes.
Getting the conscious mind out of the way. And so one of the things I'm going to experiment with myself is just when I'm doing muscle testing with people is to say, I'd like you to just let your unconscious mind respond to this, or to notice, or to direct this. So that might be an interesting way to also experiment some more with what you're doing here. Because I'm wondering is if you were to invoke that kind of tuning to the unconscious mind, if the tapping pattern might be different, or even the algorithm that you would end up using would be more effective. So I think you've got some very interesting concepts here. And I'm not sure at what point we would say, let's include this in an algorithm class, because we need to sort through a bit of this, because the tuning that you're using is different than we usually use for.
I know that, and I know I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to share it with the advanced folks, because you have way more experience collectively than I do, and I'm in this little microcosm of activity here on Vancouver Island. So it'd be nice to get a broader sense as to, you know, the relevancy of this.
Do others have any comments? You know, I noticed, Leo, you've not said anything. Are you understanding all of this? Are you tracking this? Yeah?
Yes, I understand. I really appreciate all the information we're having. And for me, it's only getting clear that where you put your mind, you put your energy. So in optimal health, when we took with Joanne, we were working on the supracausal and other dimensions. So it's nice to hear that we have an alternative to getting in another conscious, rather than the being conscious, the subconscious or the super, or another places. What would be interesting to know is if we can get, for example, in treating depression that it's been inherited, if it could work in some issues that are inherited because they're in another dimension.
You can actually test for that. You can test for that. Yes, you can. And I have. And I've also linked it to dental stuff, and there's all kinds of things you can find the links once you kind of open your mind to the possibilities. Now, I do that obviously through muscle testing, energy testing, and I've created a slight variation of the things that Joanne and Roger taught me and Bob taught me, and I call it mind-mending therapeutic dialogue. It's 80% TFT with some variations of some other things I've kind of brought into the equation. And part of it's how I have a dialogue. I actually have a dialogue with the unconscious mind, and then energy test along the way.
It's really interesting. I really appreciate it.
So I'm going to want to switch subjects in just a moment. I'm wondering if anybody else has any comments they'd like to make.
This is Jenny. Could I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess two things. Number one, twice in algorithm trainings, I've worked with women who said, I know something happened when I was young. I have no idea what it was. I don't know. And so I invited their unconscious mind to think of that. And then we did all of the treatments for reversals, et cetera, and totally eliminated. They were new people at the end. And so just a testimony to the unconscious mind, the use of the unconscious mind. And then I've been doing what you've been saying with the pain that I have, and it's greatly reduced. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Fern?
Yes, I just wonder, John, if you've done this with toxins.
No, I haven't, but that's an interesting idea, Fern.
It's a good question.
And just one other thing, I know we're going to be moving on. So Bob, there is a sequence that comes up for me probably 9 times out of 10. And so when we move into that, I'd love to share that. And John, let's connect, because I'm going to be in Vancouver Island near Nanaimo the end of March.
Well,
I'd love to get together.
Wonderful to get together, Fern. It would be.
So the other subject I wanted to talk about was, is this a good idea? Should we do this again? How often should we do this? And do people have ideas for other topics or other formats?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I sometimes feel isolated out here.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too.
and I have a couple more ideas. I'm working on something right now regarding ancestral imprints, which I'd love to share with the audience.
Nice.
I
That
think
would be great.
Okay, what else?
I think it's a wonderful idea to continue. I think it's wonderful and would very much like to participate. This is Diana.
Okay. And any thoughts about how often you think or how long these should be?
Can we do it one time in a month?
Once a
For
month.
me, it would be great.
Yeah, once a month.
Great.
I think it'd be nice also to, people have interesting case studies, and I can learn from other people's case studies because it's sometimes in the pattern and what gets as both of our cases today, there was something else that was there that through voice technology we would explore. We would learn something through that process.
Yeah.
So there's more pieces of the puzzle I think we can understand.
Yes,
Other
I agree.
suggestions or thoughts about how often we should meet? I heard Noel say once a month. What other people think?
I would suggest maybe once every month.
Once a month?
Once every other month.
Oh, every other month. Okay.
Yeah, people's schedules can get a little bit. I think if we do it every other month, there might be a more richness to the content. Gives us time to collect and to think about what we want to talk about.
That was my original thinking when I said once a quarter, but I'm open to hearing what other people think.
I would say, yeah, I would say every other month. I think I'd like to see it with what I've experienced today. I'd like to see it more than once a quarter. But I'm open, whatever works for everyone else.
Okay.
And then to be able to expand on, so we sort of put our feet in the water on this, and certainly like what John was mentioning, to continue the conversation. Okay, if we get to this point in this situation, then how do we go beyond that? And are you, Bob, opening to bringing things in that are outside of the TFT umbrella that would enhance this work, or are you wanting to keep it within the frame, entirely within the framework of TFT?
My thinking at this point is that my mission in this world is to bring more TFT to the world. And I think there's such a depth of material in TFT that I'm not particularly interested at this point of bringing in other kinds of things. So whatever we do in terms of this discussion is I want to keep it in the context of thought field therapy. There are many things that, when we step out of TFT into other realms, spiritual realms, religious realms, some of the cutting edge physics stuff is pretty amazing, but everything from my perspective needs to be talked about and conceived or expressed in TFT terms, because that's what I really wanted to do, is for people to learn more about TFT. There's so much that we can do with TFT without having to add a whole lot of other philosophical or theoretical frameworks. That I guess the answer to my question, Fern, is I want to keep it TFT.
And in keeping it TFT, because I think one of the things that John brought to the table is it's about how we ask the questions and how we investigate.
Sure.
So there are tools out there that help us to do our muscle testing more accurately, instead of trying to bring things out of the air. So if there are tools such as that will help us to do the tip, like that chart that John had, the unresolved feelings chart.
Well, that might be a topic for another discussion, which is how do we tune thoughts for muscle testing?
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts about what we might do?
I think one of the things that if we're also training is is a lot of people have difficulty with bioenergetic testing, muscle testing, and I've discovered many reasons why, and I've just kind of broadened. I don't just use Cytohen and the sore point. You've heard me talk about the term of block regulation, and it's a big deal. And I think we should at least consider using that as incorporated in the process, because it uses a tapping points to correct, and it's a major blockage to good things happening in the body. Well, and it can stop someone from actually muscle testing.
Well, John, at the VT conference last year, we talked about adding some treatment, some psychological reversal correction that was new, that included some of different points, and it's kind of in the realm of what you're talking about. So maybe we can talk some more about that.
Yeah. I've discovered, I have to go shortly, but I've discovered there's a line that we don't use in TFT. It's a very energy-rich line right behind the skull here called the superior nuchal line. And I found for 50% of the people who have block regulation, that is the correction point. Now, it could be any other point for the rest of the 50%, but for half the audience, this point back here is the correction point.
How do you tap on that?
I'm going to bring us to an end, because I said this was going to be an hour.
I
want us to try to have some confidence in that. Do we want to schedule this for an hour each time, or do people feel like you would like a little more time? What are your thoughts?
I think hour is a good length of time. I think we discuss a lot in an hour.
Others, what you're thinking?
Okay, 1 hour.
Yeah, 1 hour.
Okay, so we'll try to keep it limited, and that might make it easier. Let's talk about doing this in 2 months. I will send out another notice, and I would encourage you to all to invite anyone you would like. The only requirement is for this discussion is that they have been trained at the causal diagnostic level. So when we start talking about muscle testing and how we're doing it, that they understand. You don't have to have completed the optimal health, the advanced level, but you need to have the intermediate level. But feel free to pass this along to anyone else who meets that requirement.
Can I ask just one more thing? Because my partner wanted to also join this meeting, but she couldn't because it was too early. Can we do it an hour later?
Okay, so that would be 10 o'clock Pacific time. So is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
That's problematic for me at this point. Then I'd like to keep it at 9 o'clock for a while Pacific time, because that works better for the people on the East Coast too. And it keeps it doing. We can discuss the time later on, but earlier is better for the people here in the West Coast.
Okay.
All right, so we need to end. I want to thank you all for having participated, and this has been a really good discussion. And feel free to email me any of your thoughts or comments or ideas about future discussions. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bob. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob.
All righty. Bye-bye.